Hi there, Adrienne from Greenshire Homestead. I'm here canning some tomatoes this evening. I wanted to show you before I got started. I have a few things going on here. I'm really not set up for hot water down here. And so I put my cans inside my canner just to kind of warm them up a little bit. And I've got my tomatoes in a pot because they were in the fridge and they were cold. And then I have my lids on the stove as well. It's a good idea to heat up your lids. Don't bring it to water to boiling, however, because then it'll, the seal will, it may seal in your pot is what I'm saying. And then I'm going to put a little bit of vinegar inside the canner here. And that basically, and you don't need a certain amount, that basically keeps the jars from getting a little bit of residue on the edge. And then I also wanted to let you know that you want to make sure you get canning jars. You know, generally they'll say you'll buy a set of canning jars at the store, but the ones that I have over here are ones that came from the store. Maybe they have pickles in them or olives in them or something like that, but the glass is a little bit thinner, and so it's not meant for canning purposes. But I do save all of my old lids, and you can't see the lids that I have in there. But this little baggie is full of lids that I've sealed. Once they've been sealed once, you cannot seal them again. So we save them, and basically you could use those on the jar that is not going to be canned. And you can do your lid and your rings on those, and so you could store dry goods and things like that inside. So don't throw away your old lids. As you can see, I've got quite a few over here. So, but anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Get this all out of the way. I did get out some lemon juice, and I have 10 jars. 12 of them will fit inside my canner, 12 pint jars. Quart jars, you can get fewer in there, but I do like to can the tomatoes in pints. Just because there's two of us, and so it's easier to use a smaller amount than it is a whole jar, a whole big quart jar. But for every pint, it says you guys need to put in 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. So I'm going to do, I don't know, 6 or 7, and then if I need more, I've got 3 standing by. So we put those in here, and then we're going to take the tomatoes off the stove, and we're going to put the tomatoes inside the jars. And then the tomatoes, once you pack them in there, because remember we sorted them the other day, we blanched them and we processed them and got them all ready, so now we're doing the canning part. That was the hard part actually the other day. It's a little bit easier on this part. So we're going to put the tomatoes inside the jars, and then what we do is we put them in the pressure canner, and they go in there at 10 minutes at 10 pounds of pressure. And your little lid, I'll show you this here, your lid has got a steam release or a valve release, and I put a little X on the front of mine here and here because I can never remember which way it goes. I'll show you how that works in a minute. But when you get your pressure canner, this little thing here, you can undo the screw, and basically it's weighted. And so the number of items that you have on here determines how many pounds of pressure it is. It's 5 when you have just, you know, this with the knob on it. Now it's 10, and there's another little piece and it makes it 15. But most items, it seems like, are I process at 10 pounds of pressure, so I pretty much just leave it like this. So anyways, I'm going to pull the tomatoes out, put them in the jars, and then I'll show you the next step. Alright, I'm back. I wanted to show you, we've got about 5 jars is all we got, but they're filled up to 1-inch headspace is what we've left, and basically that's kind of the shoulder of the jar. And so I've got 5 jars here, and I use this little funnel here, and it fits just perfectly inside the mouth of the jars, and it helps you fill without spilling a bunch. So anyways, we're done with that, and then it's a good idea to either wipe the edges of the jars with your hand or with a cloth. what you're trying to do is make sure there's nothing on the threads of the jar, because if there is something on the threads of the jar, it will prevent it from sealing. So you want to make sure you do that, and then putting a little water on here too helps the lids seal a little bit better. So I've got my lids in here and they're heating up, and I'm going to take all of them out. And I like these little tongs because they help, you know, I don't have to put my fingers in there and get burned. So we're going to pull those out, and then I'm going to load them all up. I think I've got 5. I'll take the rest out later. All right, so, ouch, yeah, see, they're hot. All right, so I'm going to take my flat lids. Some people just call them flats, or you can call them lids. I don't care what you call them. But we're doing 5. So there's 2, and there's 1 more. And then take your bands, and you're going to just basically put them on there fingertip tight. You don't want to tighten them really hard, and you don't want to leave them really loose. So you just put your finger on the top so that your lid doesn't, the flat part doesn't slide around. Put those on there, just fingertip tight, like I said. You don't want to help out here. On the last jar, I was short just a teeny tiny bit, so I added a little bit of water, because if you were to add, if you were to do tomatoes packed in water, you would add water anyway, so I just added some. It'll be tomato flavored water when it's done. But anyways, just put them in here, and there's a little trivet, if you will, in the bottom of the canner. And it doesn't matter how they go in, but like I said, mine will hold 12 pints, and I've got 5 in here. So we'll take a look at that. Inside, this is kind of what it looks like. And they're just going to sit in there, and I've got about 2 to 3 inches of water in the bottom, and then I put that splash of vinegar in there as well. And then I'm going to take my lid, and this is why I put an X. I put an X there, and I put an X there with just a little Sharpie, because I never know which way to turn it, because it's offset a little bit, and then you flip it over here, and then it's sealed. And what's going to happen is, as you've got this, I'm going to try it up a teeny bit. You've got this on the stove, the steam is going to start coming out of here. When it comes out of there at a regular rate for like 10 minutes, if it's just exhausting air for 10 minutes, that's when you put on your weight. Okay, and then this says 10 minutes once you have it weighted. So what's going to happen, there's a little thing over here, it's going to open up, there's a steam, it's a release valve, and so that will rise a minute or 2 into this, and then 10 minutes, and then we'll put this on there. So we'll see you in a bit. Well, they say a watched pot never boils, but I guess it kind of does. Anyways, this has been releasing steam steadily for 10 minutes, and I don't know if you can see it from there. And if you're having a hard time seeing it, you can always take something that's dark and you can kind of put it by it so that you could see. Or maybe get down low. I could see that the steam is coming out. And what we're going to do next is basically put that 10 pound of pressure, put that gauge on top, and it just goes like that. And you'll find after about a minute, it'll kind of rock back and forth. It'll jiggle a little bit. And you want it to jiggle on a pretty regular basis for about 10 minutes, and start your timer when it starts to jiggle. So right now it's not doing anything. I neglected to tell you earlier that tomatoes need a stainless steel pot or something to cook in. They're acidic, and so, for lack of it, I don't remember. But anyways, it reacts with the aluminum. I have aluminum in my kitchen, and you can't use aluminum with tomatoes. So I've got stainless steel with my canning stuff. So we'll just wait for that to jiggle, I guess. We'll let it go for 10 minutes. Oh, I was going to also tell you, I have this thing, it's called a jar lifter, and you can put it in your canning jars and grab a hold of a jar and put it out, to cool off. but I have learned that with my pressure canner, you don't want to force it to release pressure. You know, so when it's done, basically I'm going to turn off the stove and I'm just going to walk away. I'm going to leave it alone. Don't take this thing off, because if you take that thing off and reduce the pressure that's inside, that will cause, it sounds really weird, but it will cause the liquid that's in the jar to come out of the jar. All right, so don't force it by removing that, or putting your canner in a sink of cold water, you know, to hurry it up. Just make sure that you have time to can. If you don't think you have enough time to do your canner, and this is only 10 minutes of this and 10 minutes of steam, you know, so it's really not a really long time. A boiling water canner can be a longer time, because a pressure canner, the way that it works, brings foods to a higher temperature quicker than a boiling water canner does. I do have both, because they recommend there's different canner uses for different foods. But anyways, tomatoes, you know, I've looked, you can do it in a pressure canner or you can do it in a boiling water canner. I like the pressure canner because it's faster. So anyways, but I guess I'm waiting for it to jiggle, and it's not jiggling. So once it starts jiggling, that's when we'll time for 10 minutes. Alrighty, you can see that the gauge on the top of the canner is jiggling, and it's kind of rocking back and forth, and it's making lots of noise. And it needs to be a pretty constant wiggle, and this kind of is. If you're concerned that it's too much, you can always back off the heat, you know, a teeny tiny bit. But if you notice that it's not jiggling regularly, then you want to turn the heat back up. So don't turn it too low that basically it's not hot enough inside. So this is about the right amount, and we're just going to let it go for 10 minutes, and then when we're done, I'm going to turn off the stove, and I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to check it tomorrow morning. And if you like this video, by the way, please like or subscribe to Greenshire Homestead. Thank you.